Hi everyone, my name is Grant and I'm the lead pastor of the Summit community, and we're grateful that you're engaging with this resource today, and our heart is that it's encouraging, that it's challenging and meaningful to you as a follower of Jesus. And to that end, we think that following Jesus is actually best done in the context of community. So this recorded sermon is intended to just be supplemental, and if there's anything we can do to help you further engage in community and following Jesus with others, please let us know and we'd love to support that. So as we open the word this morning or today, we hope that it blesses you.
And if you have your Bibles this morning, you can start turning there. We will be in chapter 11. Chapter 11, we're looking at Jesus' famous teaching. One of the most beautiful and incredible famous things he ever said. He says that we can find rest for our souls. Sometimes you stumble across a teaching of Jesus and you feel like this just kind of perfectly encapsulates what it means to be a believer. That like this feels like the essence of my faith. And as I was studying this passage this week, I was really feeling that. I was feeling like if I was going to pick a passage to just share with someone what Christianity is, I might very well pick this one. Like, this is as good as any of them. Only one time in the whole Bible does God tell us what his heart is like. And it's in our passage today. God has a lot to say about our hearts, but this is the one time he tells us about his. So super duper famous. If you have a Christian grandmother, she probably has this cross-stitched somewhere in her house. Matthew 11, 28 to 30. Here's what Jesus says. Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. Listen, it's 3 verses and they fly by so fast. So here's what I want to do. I want you to close your eyes, just calm all the jitters, and I'm going to go through this again. I'm going to read it a lot slower, and I want this teaching of Jesus, this amazing thing that he says to us, I want it to sink deep into you. Then Jesus said, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. It's one of the most beautiful things Jesus says in his ministry. While we still have these verses just kind of floating around the surface of our brains here, I want to show you one thing. This is Matthew 11, 28 to 30, but it's in the Message translation. If you're unfamiliar, Eugene Peterson paraphrased the Bible. He took it idea for idea, and he put it through his poetic, pastoral lens of just being the amazing Eugene Peterson, and it becomes the Message. It's an amazing resource for studying our Bibles, super poetic. We get the Bible through the lens of Eugene Peterson. Here's how he puts it. I love this. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. I love this next line so much. That's why I am sharing this. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. When you read this and when you hear this, like, what occurs to you? How do you feel? Because I read this and I think like that is what I want. If this is an option, if Jesus is like offering this to me, I want it. Sold. Me, I want that. And it's so amazing because Jesus is offering this to us today, like now, at now o'clock. Jesus is offering this to you. This is not something I have to wait until retirement to experience freedom and lightness. This is something Jesus is offering to us today. And so I'm so excited to get into this. This is the offer of Jesus, that in coming to him, we find rest for our souls. So, to jump into things, to get things started, I have a question for us. Who in here likes to run? Self-proclaimed, you enjoy running. Oh yeah, look it around. These are the psychos. Do we have any like marathon runners in here? Anyone? Wow, yeah, enthusiastic hand raised there. Who in here, by stark contrast, does not like to run? Wow, so look at that. You're like, that's putting it nicely. Over the last year, I have learned to love running. For me, I get that runner's high. I get like energized. I get excited. I really enjoy it. I enjoy it for a lot of reasons. I mean, I myself am a very social chap. Very extroverted, very chatty, have a lot of things to say. And so going on runs with people is such a good social outlet for me. I love it. But then it's good to calm down the ADHD jitters. I sleep better. I just feel holistically better. And there's a part of me that when I do this, like, this is gonna sound crazy to all you non-runners. I feel like there's a part of me that just says like, I was made to do this. There's some part of the way God put me together that when I do this, it's just right. Not like it's just like my happy place, but like I feel that like in God's design, like I was supposed to do this. And maybe for you, your version of this is raising your kids, or more broadly, just teaching children, that when you step towards this, there's some version of this where you're like, I feel like I'm flourishing as a human. Like this is what God has like made me to do. Maybe for you, it's gardening. Maybe it's dancing. Or maybe sometimes we just see this in other people. We get these glimpses of like, oh, there's something like anciently good right there. Like when you see a father being kind and selfless to his kid, or when you see someone selflessly move to another. We get these glimpses all over life, and it feels like we're looking at something so good and so true and so pure. The Bible has a word for this. The Bible calls this shalom. Shalom. The Bible has a term, it's called shalom. The idea of shalom is that it is human flourishing on every single level. Shalom is human flourishing on every level. The idea is that God creates the world in 7 days, and he calls it good. He calls it very good. And what we see is we see humans with God in perfect harmony. But not just that, it's like humans and humans, perfect harmony, and humans with creation, perfect harmony. And as we know the story goes, it goes creation, and then it goes fall. And Adam and Eve, they eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge and evil, of good and evil, and everything just shatters. And so Jesus is offering us back this shalom, this peace, this correct relationship we can experience with God. Jesus says, the kingdom of heaven has come. This is something we can experience today. That this peace, this rest from God, this like harmony, it's not like we have to wait until we die and get to heaven. It's like Jesus saying, you can have this today. This peace, this right relationship with God. So, as we think about this, it's sometimes a lot easier. Like we know this peace. This is a peace we recognize, and this is a peace we want. This is a peace we know we don't have in full right now. And so, the first step of this is just naming where we don't already have it. The first piece of this is naming our need for God. As we start to wade in to all that is Matthew chapter 11, the first piece of this is just naming our need for God. I want to be a person that every day of my life, from the day I meet Jesus to the day I see him face to face, Jesus, I need you. Come in my life. Jesus, let your kingdom come. It's a bit like the 12-step recovery program. The famous first step. Now I'm forgetting how it goes. The first step to solving a problem is admitting you have one. The first step is always just naming our need for God. As we journey with Jesus, we first meet him face to face and we say things like, Jesus, save me from my sins, like Jesus, make me new. Eventually we get to this place in our relationship with him where we're repenting of idolatry in our hearts that we did not even know existed when we first started following Jesus. And it's that daily, like, Lord, let the only thing in my heart be you. Don't let anything else be vying for that attention. Some of these things in our hearts, these needs for God, they're easily named. They're not so easily gotten rid of. Maybe that's lust or anger or whatever it looks like in your life. Some of these things might take a lifetime to overcome. And I heard this quote. I really like it. I don't know where it comes from. So if you know where this quote came from, let me know. I love this quote. It's, not everything may be solved, but it must be named. Even if I cannot solve the thing, I want to be a person that says, Jesus, in my life, there are gaps. And I see the space where I want you to be filling it. Every day, Lord Jesus, let your kingdom come in this space. From the passage, here's where I'm getting this. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens. At a surface level, I read this and I feel like there's just like an elephant in the room that we gotta knock out. Jesus says, come to me, anyone who's weary and carries heavy burdens. I read this and I'm like, oh, this is like a passage for sad people. And you know what? I'm glad they have it, because like the sad people, they gotta get their Bible. But me, like, I'm fine. You know, I got like not great sleep last night, and like whatever, I got a coworker or a boss, or I don't know. But life is a mixed bag. You know, I'm fine. I wouldn't describe myself as particularly like weary or heavy burden. That sounds like crazy. So the first question we got asked is like, what is Jesus saying? What does he mean by burden? Is this just for people under stress, or is this something a little bit more broad? Elsewhere in the book of Matthew, if you fast forward out to chapter 23, Jesus says a little bit more about burdens. We get a better idea of what he's talking about. Check this out. This is from Matthew 23, verses 1 to 5. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So, practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example. For they don't preach. They don't practice what they teach. They crush people with, this is important, this is where it's all coming up. They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Everything they do is for show. In this passage, Jesus is calling the burden. The burden is the set of rules that the Pharisees have overlaid on Scripture. And just to give you a quick background into the Pharisees, if you're not familiar, in the Old Testament, we have this cycle of God calling Israel to obey. Israel does not obey, and then things go poorly for them over and over and over and over again until we get to the books of Jeremiah and Lamentations. And all of a sudden we have Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon totally wiping out Jerusalem and the people of Israel. Fast forward 500 years, and the Pharisees, like there's a people of Israel back in Jerusalem. And the Pharisees are the religious leaders, and they're just saying like, let's not let that happen again. And so they have the original law of Moses and teachings of the Bible. They overlay it with all these other rules and commands to say, we got to make sure we're following the Bible. Jesus looks at this and just says, this is a burden. This set of rules that you are submitting yourself to, it's causing cracks in the foundation. It's like your whole humanity is splitting apart. And if we think about this, if we could generalize this a bit, as a part of being human, every person is under a set of rules that is causing the same effect. It's causing like a fracturing of the foundation. Maybe in your life, it's the American means of life, where it's like rising the ranks and trying to constantly prove yourself. And in your heart, you just feel exhausted from this. Maybe it's the pressure that we have to live outside our means, to spend more than we have. And again, you're just feeling crushed from it. Maybe it's just the pressure to be somebody that you're not, to appear a certain way. Maybe it's just like the inner critic in your ear that's self-censoring and self-criticizing everything you do and say, and it's just so rigorous. Maybe in your life, it's the pressure to do college in 4 years instead of 6. And in your heart, you know it'd be so much better if you just slowed this thing down. Whatever it, maybe it's just that we live in Spokane. You moved here. You went to college here. Some part of you thought you would be doing a bigger thing in a bigger city, yet here you are. The first step of this is just realizing, like, I am coming to Jesus with a burden. As a part of being human and as a part of being subject to the fall of the world, other things get into my heart that aren't Jesus. And Jesus is saying, come to me and let me just help you get rid of those. There is a life, there is a freedom that you can experience today when you come to Jesus and say, there is something in my heart that should not be here. And again, this is not just something for new believers. This is a thing for the person that's been following Jesus for 5 years, 10 years, 25, 50 years. I really like what our very own Pastor Rory says. Pastor Rory says, the problem with a living sacrifice is that it keeps crawling off the altar. It's just a really solid Roryism. But it's true. You know, every day of my life, I want to be marked by someone that says, like, Jesus, I want to take up my cross. I want to die to myself. I want to be like you. And so the first piece is just naming our need for God. The second piece of this is to take the next revealed step towards Jesus. I love this. We come to Jesus in our need and in our desperation. And he doesn't just leave us there. To quote Pastor Rory again, he comes beside us and he lifts our face. Jesus doesn't just leave us, he comes alongside us. And so, here's where I'm getting this. Jesus says, take my yoke upon you. Take my yoke upon you, because it's easy to bear and you'll find rest. But if we just pause for a second, it is not intuitive what Jesus is saying here, especially for us who live in Spokane City or Spokane South Hill. This is like so countercultural and agrarian that we just have to pause and say, what on earth is a yoke? So perhaps, like me, you think of yoke and you think of scrambled eggs. Pretty intuitive. Maybe you're feeling like, I didn't eat breakfast. I called coffee my breakfast. I have made mistakes. As I studied the passage this week, I found that there is so much here. And holy cow, I'm genuinely so excited to share this with you. Holy cow. Okay, can you put up the picture, please? First off, does anyone know what that animal is? Oh, ox. Okay, this is a smarter service. I and everyone at the 8:30 called this a cow. And we were wrong. It's got horns. It looks like a cow in a Halloween costume. But I digress. That wooden thing that's on their back, that is the yoke. The yoke, you strap it to your cattle, more broadly. And in this picture, they are tilling the ground. They're doing farm stuff. I don't know, I'm not like a farmer. You strap the yoke to your animals, and they can help you carry the burden. You can attach this thing to a wagon full of people, or you can, a cart full of supplies. You put it on your beast, and they carry your burden. Hence the old term, beast of burden. Because this is what yokes do. Yokes are burden management. But it doesn't stop here. Nay, it goes so much deeper. It gets crazier. Check this out. Haha, here we go. Now it's really getting going. 200 years before Jesus is walking the earth, there is 200 years, 2 centuries prior, there is another dude walking around, and his name is also Jesus, but his name is Jesus ben Sirach. I'm just going to call him Sirach so we don't get confused by the two Jesus thing. Sirach is like cataclysmically intelligent. He immediately becomes one of the most well-known thinkers of his day. He writes a book called the Book of Sirach, aka Ecclesiasticus. And 200 years later, this is unbelievably well-known. Jesus and his disciples would be super duper familiar with this book. At Summit, we often quote guys like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and Dallas Willard and Tim Keller and others. For Jesus and his followers, it would have been Sirach. So Sirach takes this idea of a yoke, he turns it into a big metaphor about disciples and their rabbis. I want to read you what he says. Notice if this feels at all similar to our passage today. It's from the book of Sirach. Put your neck under the yoke and let your souls receive instruction. Whoa, pretty similar. It is to be found close by. See with your eyes that I have labored little and found for myself much rest. This is oddly similar to the thing Jesus just said. And scholars have a whole heyday with this. I'm telling you, it's nuts. They draw all kinds of similarities, going so far to say that Jesus is co-opting or plagiarizing the wisdom literature of the day because he knows that he can drive this point home with his disciples if he uses it like this. Sirach is saying, you've got these yokes, you put on your animals, it's burden management. In Roman culture, like Roman era Christianity, there was a student-to-teacher relationship called disciples and their rabbis. And Sirach is looking at them and saying disciples, your rabbis have a yoke. It is their wisdom. It is their way of interpreting the Bible and carrying the burdens of life. And so we see the disciples living with their rabbis, serving with their rabbis, eating with their rabbis. They sit under their rabbis' teaching 24/7. 365 days a year. It's insane. It's really, really intense. But the idea is that these disciples will eventually become 99% like their rabbis by carrying their yoke and learning to carry life's burdens as their rabbi does. Some of you can see where this is going. Check this out. This is coming back to the teaching of Jesus. This is what Jesus says in our passage today. In verse 29, Jesus says, take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Jesus is literally inviting us to become 99% like him. And in our study, in our journey to becoming like Jesus and spending time with him and trying to do all the things Jesus did, we find rest and we find life. We find it to the full, that in the process of naming our need for God and taking those next steps that he is revealing to us, we end up finding this otherworldly, heavenly shalom, this alignment, this harmony between humans and God and humans with other humans and humans with creation itself. We can find this in our Lord Jesus Christ. And the idea is one day I will be in heaven. I will be with Jesus face to face, and all will be made right. I think of Revelation 21 and 22, talking about no more fears and no more tears, no more pain. It is just experiencing the harmony that it is to be with God. To have this rest, this kingdom rest, this biblical rest, this Sabbath rest, it means that I no longer have to prove myself. I don't need an inferiority complex, and I don't need a superiority complex. I am who God says I am. I am at peace with myself. I'm also just enjoying what God has for me. I can enjoy my life and the things around me. I don't have to constantly criticize or self-censor everything I do and say. All the murmur of criticism and self-censorship can just quiet down. I can be at peace because I am with Jesus. And there's a paradox to this, because there's like a self-defeating element to this, because the culture around us says nothing should be your master. You should have freedom. You should, run your own life, make your own decisions. But Jesus is saying, when you submit to me as master, you find life, you find freedom. By having a master, you find freedom. And it's all caught up in the person and presence of Jesus. Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and you will find rest for your souls. I'd like to give us a few ways to think through how to practically live this out today. And so I am the pastor of student ministries here at Summit. And one of the things I love to do is I love to broadcast what God is doing in Summit students to the rest of the church. Because how would you know if I never told you? When it comes to naming our need for God, when it comes to taking those next steps towards God, there's some really cool things happening in our middle and high schoolers' lives right now here at Summit. Back in August, I got to speak up here, and I got to share with you that in the month of August, we had 21 students step towards baptism. Amazing. Wow, holy cow. Yeah. Right after this, we saw a huge spike in the amount of students that want to serve their church and serve their city. So coming into the fall, we have 60 total students, over 60 students that are serving here on Sundays, are serving with our local nonprofits. It's amazing. We have Summit's mission statement, again, is we help people come to Jesus, grow in Jesus, and live for Jesus. At a Summit students level, we take that live for Jesus component and we call it student impact. Student impact is the pathway for any middle or high schooler. Yeah, got my student impact people nodding, giving me fists up. Yeah, cool. It's our way to help people serve their church and serve their city. And so, as I was looking at the list of students this week, I wanted to highlight one story from this. And so I want to tell you about my friend, Kid Mannon. And if you don't know, Kid is literally his name. K-I-D-D, Kid. I met Kid when he was like this tall. He was shy and big old glasses. And part of the fun of being in student ministries is you get to watch these people just glow up right in front of you. And so Kid is now much taller, much more good looking than me. And it's like one of those insecurities got laid to the side being in student ministries. I have gotten to watch Kid become such a man of God. Over this past summer, I was just having a great discipleship conversation with Kid at Taco Bell. And he was sharing with me that he started this Bible study, like this Bible reading plan with all his friends. And it was just a summer thing, but it's what he wanted to do, was read the Bible with his friends. And to me, it's such a good example of doing the thing that God puts right in front of you and just faithfully walking towards it to find that rest and peace. Kid is a guy, he loves to pray, he loves to be kind to others. Again, I just think Kid is an example to us of someone who is faithfully living out the call of Jesus in his life to whatever is in front of him. And so my question to you today is, what is God putting on your horizons? What is God calling you to name as a need for him right now? What is God revealing as a step of faithfulness that you can step towards him in? When we say take on the burden of Jesus, take on his yoke, the idea is that we're already wearing another yoke, and we're saying Jesus, this thing should have never been here in the first place. So I'm gonna go ahead and yoink this thing off, and instead take your yoke on me because Jesus, I need your way of life. In my world, I have 3 kids, ages 7, 6, and 4, boy, boy, girl. And every morning, the 3-headed dragon wakes up, named Titus, Reuben, and Willow, and it comes out and roars. Over the summer, I just had this wake-up call of a moment where I realized the way I'm talking to my kids is terrible. I am raising my voice at them. I am belittling them and berating them. I want them to experience the love of God from me. And instead, it feels like they're experiencing the opposite. And so trying to be faithful to Jesus, it's I don't know how to stop doing this other than to just try and stop. So Jesus, I need to name this need for you. There's an area of my life that is not filled with your lightness, and freedom. The next revealed step is like, I'm not handling this well on my own, so I'll invite my community into it. My mentor's name is Rob Culp, and Rob is dope. We love Rob. If you know Rob, you love Rob. Rob and a few guys from the church have talked to me ad nauseum, just being in my life, thinking through how I parent my kids, to be gentle with them and kind with them. And for me, it's all kinds of embarrassing. Like, I didn't mean to look like this in the first place, and yet here I am with like the loving support of friends, trying to be more like Jesus. In your life, what is that? We say you take off the yoke of something else and say like, Jesus, that should have never been there. I want to have your yoke instead. I want to be like you, Jesus. And to be fair, it's not like totally easy. The life of Jesus calls us into self-denial, to question our beliefs and behaviors and say like, Jesus, let me live in you instead. And so in your world, maybe it is anger for you. Maybe it's impatience or a sense of like low-level irritation that you never can quite shake. Maybe it's lust. Maybe it's your relationship with the interwebs and like your inability to control yourself inside of it. Maybe for you, it's like you've fallen into some like gossip that for whatever reason, you just are saying unkind things about people when they're not around. Whatever it is for you, I would say like, pray, Lord, crystallize in my mind what it is you are putting on my horizons. How can I be like you? Because Jesus is offering us shalom. He's offering us human flourishing at every level, that we can be in harmony with God, in harmony with each other and the world. And this is something he has for us today, a peace that is literally otherworldly, the kingdom of heaven invading the here and now, that we get to live with Jesus. I said this at the beginning, but just to recap, in life, sometimes we get glimpses of this. Sometimes we get a little look at like, oh, that's it. I think that's it. I think that's the peace that Jesus promises. Sometimes I see it in me. Sometimes I see it in others. But we see like God created this world, and I can tell because there's a harmony, there's a shalom that is around here that I see. And Jesus is inviting us into all of it. A rest, a lightness, a freedom, life and life to the full like we've never experienced. Jesus is offering that to us. And that's what Matthew 11:28-30 is all about. Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary, all of you who are carrying the yokes of things that should have never been there. Let me help you take those things off and help you find life and life to the full. Would you guys pray with me? Jesus, we do pray that you would convict our hearts this morning. We want to find life and peace and rest in you. And so show us, Lord, like, where is that in my life? Reveal it now, like put it in my mind's eye at this moment. Jesus, we are seeking you. We want your will in my life as it is in heaven. Jesus, we love you. We give this Sunday morning to you. It's in your name that all of God's Summit Church said, amen. Would you guys stand with me? If you did walk in here today and there is like a big something that is, I don't know, it's like hurtful or it's stressful or whatever, or perhaps you just want to pray with someone, there will be a prayer team up here in the front, and it is incredibly commendable and cool to seek the Lord with them. May we be a people that find our ultimate peace in Jesus. May we be a people that name our need for God every day and walk in his presence. And may we be a people that from the day that we met him to the day we meet him face to face, we just see him more and more, and the presence and peace of God invades our lives. Go get a pumpkin. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for joining us online today. We hope that you felt encouraged or were impacted in some way throughout service. If something from worship or the message is stirring your heart, or maybe God is just prompting you to take some next steps in your faith, I just want to invite you to fill out an online Connect card, and our team would love to come alongside of you in that. Here at Summit, we believe that walking and living in community is vital to our walk with Jesus. If you're local, I want to invite you to join us here in person at Summit. And if you aren't local, I just want to encourage you to get planted into a local church. We love you so much. Have a great week.